Our story begins in Goryeo during the year 1247, a land ravaged by years of brutal Mongol invasions where a general orders his men to search for survivors and kill them on sight. Hidden away, a young boy trembles in the darkness, trying to protect a smaller child cowering beside him, desperately muffling the younger one's cries to stay hidden. But a nearby soldier stops, thinking he heard something. The boy prays they won't be discovered, his heart pounding. And for a moment, the soldier seems ready to just walk away. Relief washes over the boy as he watches the soldier turn, but that relief shatters in an instant, as another soldier's face appears right above him, a cruel grin on his face. The boy is frozen in pure, unadulterated terror. Their hiding spot is kicked apart with a violent crash, and the soldier scoffs, annoyed he was going to make them slaves, deciding now he'll just kill them both where they stand. Just as he raises his sword, the general arrives asking what's happening, and the soldier reports that he found two boys hiding. The general looks down at them with a cold, calculating gaze, as the older boy shields the younger one, bracing for the end. But the general decides a simple death would be a waste, ordering his man to bring an iron skewer for his fun. Suddenly, the soldier spots someone else still alive. A young man standing calmly, his back turned to them. And the general, his mood soured, orders the stranger killed immediately. The warrior's grip tightens, forcing a terrified submission from the soldier. But the Mongol general just smirks, unimpressed by the display, as the mysterious warrior effortlessly holds his subordinate down. The general recognizes his strength, identifying him as a Goryeo general, and raises his own massive blade for a direct challenge, mocking the warrior for daring to face a Mongol commander. The warrior simply raises an open palm to meet the descending sword, catching the steel with his bare hand and shattering it instantly. And in the same motion, his hand closes over the general's face, a grip of iron that crushes the man's helmet and his confidence. The fight is over before it even began. The general dispatched with ease. A young boy watches in disbelief, realizing this is the legendary warrior the Mongols fear. The warrior turns to the child, apologizing for his late arrival, praising the boy's bravery in protecting his younger brother. He prepares to face the entire enemy unit alone, prompting the boy to ask if he's a warrior monk, a title the warrior admits he once held long ago. The boy laments his own weakness, wishing he could have saved his family, and with tears in his eyes, he asks a life-changing question, pleading to know if he too can become that strong. The warrior looks back with quiet certainty and gives a simple answer, of course. Years seem to pass under a clear blue sky. A determined foot steps forward, no longer a child's, revealing the boy, now a young man panting from exhaustion, his face etched with the strain of relentless training, haunted by the memory of his mother's last words, telling him to run. A memory surfaces of his brother, Kwan, looking down with desperate eyes as the younger Kwan cried, begging him to just stay alive, and Kwan promised through his own tears that he would be fine. Kwan recalls his brother telling him about their father's death, but now he doesn't care about the reasons or the identities of their enemies. He only cares that the ones who took his brother are still breathing. He spits blood, realizing his father's martial arts are destroying his body. But he forces himself to hold on just a little bit longer, until his strength finally gives out and he collapses on the ground. Nearby, a man glances over his shoulder, suddenly noticing something. Spotting Kwan's unconscious form lying on the beach by a boat. Did I fall asleep? He wonders, his vision blurry. A strange feeling makes him look down at his hands, only to find them locked in heavy iron shackles. Someone begins to unlock his restraints, making him realize these are new captors. And then a short sword is pressed into his hand. With a grim look, he turns as blood splatters behind him, having just dispatched an opponent in a brutal fight. But a new challenger appears, a massive brute of a man, while elsewhere, a smug nobleman makes a business proposal. He suggests a match to the arena owner, 6 untrained slaves against her champion. But the owner, Hong Seol, knows it's a guaranteed loss for her side, yet the man insists she hear him out before refusing, offering to pay the price of 20 slaves regardless of the outcome. Lord Han reveals his sole motivation for this bloody spectacle is pure entertainment, gleefully admitting nothing excites him more than the thrill of a brutal fight. And the arena owner realizes she's dealing with a complete madman. She attempts to refuse his request, citing the principles of her establishment, but a subordinate whispers a warning in her ear, urging caution. Weighing the risks, she decides it's better not to make a powerful enemy. An attendant asks Lord Han which warrior he'll be sending into the ring, and he smugly announces that his own personal bodyguard will fight. The owner's gaze hardens, understanding the stakes have just been raised, as a large bald man with a disturbing smile is shown. She warns Lord Han that even his champion could fall to an unexpected challenger, but he simply smirks, finding the possibility of death part of the fun. With her decision made, the owner orders the use of the newly arrived slaves. Her attendant accepts with a bow, and the man, an arena fighter named Bar, turns to carry out the order. The bodyguard's unsettling, wide-eyed stare promises a brutal match ahead. Down below, a group of terrified slaves wonder why they were chosen for this fight. They lament the false promise of freedom when death seems so certain, but Bar tells the frightened men they should consider themselves lucky, offering his skill with a sword in exchange for a cut of their prize money. He counts their group, realizing they're one man short of the required 6. Just then, a gate creaks open as the final combatant is brought in, revealing Lord Han's massive bodyguard, who towers over them with a giant blade. While the others panic, Bar tries to stay calm, believing size is a disadvantage. In the stands, Lord Han rubs his hands in anticipation, the show finally starting. The crowd's roar echoes through the arena as the combatants face off below. Lord Han notes they're short one slave, but his attendant promises the spot will be filled. Kwan is violently thrown from a cell, becoming the final combatant, revealing Kwan, his face etched with scars and a quiet, grim resolve. From the balcony, the arena owner Hong Seol looks on in sudden shock. She's furious, realizing her men mistakenly threw the young slave into the death match. Bar looks on in disgust, worried the boy will just break down and cry. But his condescending look instantly turns to one of utter disbelief, as the bodyguard attacks without warning, swinging his huge blade at another slave. With a simple command, the champion executes one of the slaves in a single, brutal strike. Lord Han grins with sadistic glee, pleased with his champion's brutal efficiency. The other slaves descend into panic, certain they're all about to be slaughtered. Amid the terror, Kwan stands perfectly still, his expression unreadable, as another fighter is cut down in a violent spray of blood. Another life is extinguished before the fight has truly even begun. The sight of the slaughter triggers a painful memory, making him think of his brother. The champion coldly announces his second kill, now turning his attention to Kwan. Watching from above, Hong Seol realizes with dread that it's too late to intervene. The massive blade descends, the bodyguard mockingly telling the boy to cry. But something stops his blade, and he looks down in confusion. Kwan has already moved, ducking under the swing to strike at the brute's knee. The sudden counterattack catches Hong Seol's eye, her interest clearly piqued. With cold fury in his eyes, Kwan makes a simple, deadly promise. "I'll kill you." He doesn't hesitate for a second, exploding forward to press his advantage. His foot digs into the sand, channeling immense power for his next move. The bodyguard taunts Kwan, calling him a rat for running away, but Kwan easily sidesteps a thrown weapon, moving with impossible speed, a display of light footwork that leaves the bodyguard stunned in disbelief. He barely has time to register what's happening, as Kwan's blade slashes across his face and neck in a flash. The massive champion falls, defeated by a single, precise strike. In the stands, the spectators are left utterly speechless by the upset, and Kwan stands victorious over his fallen opponent. The other slaves celebrate, realizing with relief that they're still alive. The crowd erupts into cheers, amazed by the young fighter's incredible skill. Lord Han, however, can only stare in stunned silence, his plan ruined. His attendant notes his shock, admitting he was surprised too. Elsewhere, a man recalls how Kwan never cried out despite his wounds, noting his beast-like recovery and natural warrior's body. A man named Guak Wereng reflects on his decision to acquire the boy, realizing the shallow cuts on his body proved he'd survived a master swordsman. His doubts vanished, certain he'd found a slave with immense talent. The arena vice owner, Guak Wereng, sees a future star and a path to profit. Back in the arena, Bar recognizes the technique as master-level light footwork. A quick explanation reveals it's a skill using chi to dramatically increase speed. And at a master's level, it enhances power and jumping distance even further. The same principle can be applied to any movement, not just running. The owner, Hong Seol, clenches her fist, seeing a useful tool in her hands. Believing that once he's strong enough, she'll finally have her chance. She orders Wereng to see Lord Han out, who worries about the nobleman's grudge. Lord Han's bodyguard watches the arena with a sinister, eager smile, and his master gleefully anticipates seeing Kwan torn apart in the ring. Down below, Kwan grips the short sword now in his hand, wondering if a weapon like this could have saved his brother. The thought consumes him, a painful echo of his past failure. Nearby, Bar orders the other slaves to disarm and get inside, but he quickly notices Kwan standing alone, ignoring the command. Annoyed, Bar questions if the boy has lost his mind after the kill. Kwan is lost in regret, believing his brother would still be alive. His defiance pushes the arena fighter over the edge, who unleashes a vicious kick, sending the boy flying across the ground. Kwan crashes hard as Bar stands over him, victorious, and the other slaves watch in shock at the sudden brutality. An older slave tells a newcomer not to be surprised, explaining that violence and death are just a normal part of life here. The grim warning leaves the new arrivals pale with fear. Meanwhile, the crowd outside grows restless, sensing another fight brewing. Lord Han watches from above, furious that his expensive goods were damaged. But Bar's expression suddenly shifts to one of shock, as he finds himself on the ground, clutching an injured leg. Kwan stands over him, confused why these strangers keep attacking him. He suddenly realizes the era he's in is late Goryeo, and his strange mumbling and fighting stance baffle the injured Bar. Enraged, Bar grabs a sword, vowing to punish the slave who dared to wound him. But Kwan's eyes are cold and steady, ready for what comes next. A slave lunges at Kwan, only to be run through with a sword. The young warrior's grip unflinching on the blade he was given. An enraged bald man raises his own weapon to strike, shouting for him to stop. But his cry draws the attention of the veteran fighter, Bar. The bald man complains that the new kid needs to be taught a lesson, but Bar's cold command is enough to make him back down. Turning his attention to Kwan, Bar orders him to lower his sword, calmly stating that he has no intention of hurting him. Kwan remains silent, his eyes filled with exhaustion and distrust. His head is still foggy from his collapse, making it hard to understand, but he can sense that Bar is not preparing for a fight. Still, he stays on guard, surrounded by enemies in a hostile place. Bar's patience wears thin as he asks if Kwan intends to disobey, until another slave quietly suggests the boy can't understand their language. The man who spoke is immediately grabbed for his interruption, and Bar turns, demanding to know what he meant. Shoved forward, the slave is warned to speak or die. He scrambles toward the veteran fighter, desperate to explain, revealing he heard Kwan speaking the Goryeo language to himself. Bar's expression shifts, finally understanding the standoff. The Goryeo slave realizes he can communicate with the newcomer, and though terrified, he feels he owes Kwan for saving him moments before. He cautiously steps forward, calling out in their shared language, catching Kwan completely by surprise with the familiar words. The slave introduces himself as a fellow countryman, creating a fragile bridge between them. "You're free to try and fail?" Bar scoffs at the determined slave. The bald man grumbles nearby, annoyed by the special treatment Kwan is receiving. With a nervous expression, the Goryeo slave slowly approaches Kwan, who watches him with suspicion, wondering why he's getting closer. The man bows his head, sincerely thanking Kwan for saving all their lives. He then gently asks him to lower his sword, now that the fight is over, and the words finally hit Kwan, his hand trembling on the hilt. The Goryeo slave watches, surprised by the boy's delayed reaction. But Kwan's victory is overshadowed by a single, painful thought: he couldn't save his brother. Seeing the boy's grief, the slave realizes that beneath the skill, he's just a child. Crying after such an ordeal is an understandable response, Bar admits to himself. He orders the Goryeo slave to explain the situation to the clearly disoriented Kwan. The bald man, however, glares with malice, vowing to deal with him later. Elsewhere, the arena owner Hong Seol asks for an opinion on their new fighter. Bar reports that while Kwan is good for profit, he's not suited for her ultimate goal. She questions this, pointing out his mastery of light footwork is a sign of immense talent. Bar counters that a true genius is someone who reaches a level no one else can touch. He explains that prodigies who peak early rarely continue to improve. And since Kwan has mastered one chi technique, learning another is almost impossible. Hong Seol remains unconvinced, suggesting his potential for growth isn't yet sealed. Bar concedes that, with the right teacher, further development might be possible. But in the arena, he'll be forced to learn to kill, not cultivate his chi. And Hong Seol knows sending him away means losing that slim possibility forever. Guak Wairang recalls his assessment of the boy's fate, a choice between two very different paths for his future. The Goryeo slave explains Kwan was likely sold here while he was out cold, while another warns that begging for freedom only earns a beating. Kwan asks if this is an arena, but the slave says it's far worse than he imagines, explaining this entire province is filled with hundreds of arenas backed by nobles. He concludes it's a place where a normal person could never survive. But Kwan's reaction is chillingly calm, calling it a fun place. "I needed somewhere to hide and train anyway," he reveals, vowing to become the strongest here before seeking his revenge. Their conversation is suddenly interrupted by a smirky man who orders all the new slaves to come with him immediately. The man reminds them he told them to be ready for anything, announcing with a wicked grin that it's time to get started. Elsewhere, huge portions of food are being prepared for the fighters, and the cook looks relieved that his work for the day is almost over. He sees the new arrivals being led out, assuming it's for another round of brutal discipline. His expression suddenly shifts to one of utter shock as he notices a child standing among the grown men. The new slaves are lined up before a group of veterans taunted for their fear, but their handler assures them he's not going to kill them. Kwan surveys the area, a blocked-off yard that looks like a training ground. The man who led them out addresses his brother, presenting the new recruits, proudly announcing he's gathered them all for an introduction, revealing a massive, scarred fighter who scoffs at how weak they all look. A veteran slave taunts the new arrivals, calling them unlucky sacrifices for the arena. The Goryeo slave agrees, admitting they'd all be dead if not for Kwan's victory. The veteran introduces his skilled brother, Jugeng, telling everyone to learn from him to survive. He then demands that all the new slaves introduce themselves and explain their origins. One by one, they share their tragic stories of bankruptcy and being sold into slavery. A former farmer and a young orphan recount the misfortunes that led them here. But when it's his turn, Kwan remains completely silent, his face hidden. The Goryeo slave remembers the language barrier and offers to translate for him. Kwan quietly refuses to share his story, seeing the whole thing as an intimidation tactic. He has amnesia and can't remember his name. The translator lies. The veteran's smile disappears, seeing right through the flimsy excuse. He grabs the translator by the hair, his patience completely gone, and delivers a vicious blow across his face for the deception. The other slaves recoil in terror at the sudden, brutal punishment. Kwan's eyes snap open, witnessing the unprovoked violence. Elsewhere, the bald fighter approaches Bar, who's still recovering from his injury. He nervously suggests that Bar should go down and see what's happening. Bar is lost in thought, recalling Kwan's utter lack of remorse after their fight. He remembers the boy's beaten face, still refusing to apologize or show fear. The memory of the other slave's shock flashes through his mind as he recalls holding the unconscious boy, a mix of anger and disbelief. The thought of that defiant brat clearly still bothers him. The bald man tells Bar not to worry about the owners if he decides to cripple Kwan. He argues that if Kwan's light footwork steals the spotlight, it's bad for all of them. Bar recognizes the boy's technique as light footwork, and Kwan grimly notes that the world is full of scum. He leaps forward, launching a flying kick at the veteran fighter, but the strike is easily blocked by Bar's forearm. The veteran fighter is still shocked by the boy's speed, a reaction that even catches Kwan off guard. Bar retaliates instantly with a devastating punch to the chest, sending Kwan skidding across the dirt floor. The other slaves agree it's time to teach the newcomer a lesson. Bar explains that chi techniques like light footwork have a critical weakness. Kwan glares up from the ground, his eyes burning with defiance. The veteran fighter kicks him again, explaining that disrupting his breathing is key, and Kwan can only watch as his opponent prepares to attack. Bar leaps into the air, aiming to finish the fight before he can recover. The boy cries out as the blow connects, slamming him face first into the hard-packed earth. While one slave praises Bar, another prisoner notes his arrogance isn't entirely misplaced. He explains that light footwork is actually the easiest chi technique to counter, and without learning other skills, Kwan's potential is severely limited. Later that night, Guak Wirang walks through the compound, where the bald slave who instigated the fight asks why he was summoned. Wirang's expression is cold and unforgiving, and he suddenly smashes his fist into the man's face. The bald slave stumbles back, clutching his gut from a second brutal blow. Just as Wirang presses a blade to his head, Guak Wirang holds the blade to his head, asking if he dared touch something he came to claim. The bald slave begs for his life, pleading that he didn't know the boy was important, but Wirang scoffs that trash like him could never recognize true talent. Trembling with fear, the man stammers that he understands his mistake. Wirang walked away, leaving him as Kwan remains unconscious on the ground. He then addresses the veteran fighters, announcing the first lesson is over. Taking the cue, the veteran leader orders Bar to be dragged forward to have his legs smashed. He muses that he's been too soft, letting the slaves get out of line, vowing to remind them all what real fear is, but his threat is cut short by a sudden, unbelievable sight. The veteran stumbles back, his eyes wide with shock, as Kwan miraculously forces himself back to his feet in the center of the yard. While the fighters mock his toughness, the Goryeo slave begs him not to charge in again. The scene shifts to a memory, a bright day beneath the trees. A much younger Kwan pants, apologizing to his brother during a workout. He struggles with a weighted stick, questioning if this harsh training is necessary. His older brother easily lifts a massive log, telling him to just hold on. He then offers to explain what makes their father's martial arts so special. The memory introduces Kwan's older brother, Jeong-kwan, with a kind smile. Jeong-kwan explains that chi is a power that boosts strength, but its level varies in each person. A curious Kwan asks why everyone's potential is different. His brother uses an analogy about learning that only seems to annoy him. He continues, stating most chi techniques rely on gathering energy through stable breathing, but their father's martial arts, he reveals, are fundamentally different. Zhongquan demonstrates Jingak, a technique to create a flow of qi directly within the body. In a memory, Kei-Kwan's brother demonstrates how to feel and focus qi in his arm, but a younger Kei-Kwan questions if their father's arts are truly special or just different. An insightful question that catches his older brother completely off guard, who smiles, praising Kei-Kwan for being smarter than he thought. He then promises to reveal what truly makes their family's techniques so powerful, leaning in to share the first and most important secret. The memory fades, leaving Kei-Kwan gasping for breath on the dirt floor. His eyes burn with fury as he warns the veteran that he started this fight. The man is momentarily stunned by the boy's sudden defiance, and Kei-Kwan explodes forward with impossible speed, a blur of motion. His opponent can't believe his eyes, recognizing the advanced light footwork technique, just as a fist smashes into the side of his head with brutal force. Kei-Kwan's gaze remains cold and focused, his attack just beginning, immediately following up with a powerful spinning kick, then driving a fist deep into the veteran's gut, staggering him. Another kick connects with his jaw, sending him stumbling back, leaving the veteran bleeding and disoriented from the relentless assault. Without hesitation, Kei-Kwan grabs him by the hair, yanking him downward and slams his face repeatedly into the hard-packed dirt. The onlookers are stunned, admitting the boy is far stronger than they ever imagined. The second veteran finally intervenes, screaming for him to stop the beating. But Kei-Kwan ignores the warning, delivering another vicious kick to the downed man. Enraged, the other man calls him a crazy bastard for his defiance. Kei-Kwan simply turns and launches a kick at the second veteran's face, following up with a low sweep that sends him crashing to the ground. A veteran slave panics, shouting that Kei-Kwan is a killer who must be taken down together. The others agree, stunned that a child could possess such dangerous skill. But Bar watches from afar, shocked Kei-Kwan can still use light footwork in his condition. He recalls the earlier match, realizing the boy used two different chi techniques in succession, and a terrifying possibility begins to dawn on him. Bar concludes the boy's talent is something far beyond his own understanding. His thoughts are interrupted by Hongseol, who orders him to open the door. Startled, Bar turns to the arena owner, questioning her sudden appearance. Hongseol simply stares ahead, her expression calm and unreadable. The heavy gate to the training yard swings open with a groan, catching the attention of the slaves inside, who turn in nervous confusion. The veteran fighter who led the beating looks up in complete shock. As Hongseol enters, the fighter calls out to Bar, who follows behind her. The owner gives a subtle, knowing smirk as she surveys the scene. On the ground, the Goryeo slave lies unconscious from the earlier assault, and nearby, Kei-Kwan is still down from Bar's brutal counterattack. Hongseol calmly states she understands exactly what's been going on here, threatening the veterans with hard labor for fighting during mealtime. The men immediately bow in terror, offering a frantic apology. Kei-Kwan looks up from the dirt, surprised to see a woman hold such authority. She walks over to him, her shadow falling over his beaten form, and tells him that unlike the others, he looks like he needs to be broken in. Before he can react, she strikes with blinding speed, the blow landing hard as he curses his weakened body for its slow response. The other slaves can only watch in disbelief, wondering why the owner is attacking him now. Bar realizes Hongseol's punishment was a warning to everyone else, and decides he must tell her that his opinion of the boy has changed. In the training yard, Kei-Kwan is struck down by a sudden powerful blow, collapsing onto the dirt as Hongseol stands over him with a drawn blade. He lies unconscious on the ground, defeated once again. Hongseol looks down at him with an unreadable, cold expression, ordering Bar to summon a physician for the boy immediately. Peeking from behind a wall, the bald slave trembles in fear at the scene. Later, a small object glints as it falls through the darkness, and the young orphan awakens, confused by the unfamiliar ceiling above him. He realizes he's lying on a soft blanket, wondering where he could be. His eyes snap open in sudden, dawning terror, letting out a panicked scream as he jolts upright. Hongseol turns, annoyed by the outburst from the noisy little brat. The boy apologizes frantically as a servant chides Hongseol for being seen. His mind reels, trying to comprehend the bizarre situation. And he then notices Kei-Kwan is in the same room, also recovering. Kei-Kwan explains that the woman brought a doctor to treat both of them. The orphan is stunned, knowing only someone powerful could treat slaves so freely. He suddenly remembers greeting this very woman as the owner on his first day. The realization hits him and he cries out in terror, bowing low. He begs for his life, but Hongseol is merely annoyed by the commotion. The boy quickly promises to be silent, fearing for his life. Nearby, an attendant finishes tying Hongseol's hair, receiving a simple thanks. The attendant offers a gentle, reassuring smile in return. Hongseol stands before the two recovering slaves, her expression unreadable. Her sharp gaze analyzes Kei-Kwan's defiant nature, recalling how he never flinched, unlike the terrified Goryeo slave beside him. She decides his unyielding spirit is perfectly suited for the arena. The owner decides to ask his name, but the Goryeo slave knows Kekwan will refuse and quickly offers to give him a name if he won't say his own. Kekwan dismissively agrees, telling him to do whatever he wants. The Goryeo slave recalls his fighting style like a flying shadow and chooses a name, Byong. Kekwan then asks about the ill-tempered woman, causing the Goryeo slave to panic. But Hong Seol overhears, remarking on his foul mouth. She reveals that she is the owner of the arena, shocking Kekwan. The Goryeo slave collapses, begging for forgiveness, realizing she understood everything. He's certain he's dead for lying directly to the owner's face, but Hong Seol just gives him a light smack, telling him not to be so loud. She then turns to Kekwan, officially declaring his new name will be Byayong. The Goryeo slave watches in relief, thinking she might not be so bad after all. Hong Seol orders the attendant to feed the Goryeo slave and send him back down. She corrects her, saying to only feed the Goryeo slave, leaving the attendant confused. Hong Seol then summons Bayang, telling him to come with her. Bayang looks on with a wary, determined expression. The attendant wonders where she's taking him, musing that she might even want him to run. She leads him out into the open courtyard, past the daily life of the estate. Bayang follows silently beside her, his future uncertain. A faint knowing smile plays on Hong Seol's lips as they walk. The scene shifts to her conversation with Bar, asking if he's changed his mind about the boy. Guak Weirang reflects on Kekwan's unprecedented talent, realizing he could become a legendary master. Hong Seol worries about securing the boy's loyalty, admitting her usual methods might not work on him. A mocking voice suddenly calls out, asking if owner Hong is on nanny duty, revealing another arena owner Man Ho-gwang, who patronizes her for running a rough business. Hong Seol fires back a sharp retort, but he dismisses it as a simple joke. He gets down to business, introducing his personally scouted fighter, Song Gyeong. Man Ho-gwang boasts that his prodigy is already a genius, hinting at powerful rumors. The mention of rumors catches Hong Seol's attention, her expression turning serious. Man Ho-gwang then gestures toward Kekwan, asking for his prodigy's opinion. Kekwan stands silently in the yard, his clothes torn, but his gaze firm. Song Gyeong looks down on him from afar, immediately judging him as far too weak. He confidently thinks to himself that he could kill the boy in a single blow. Man Ho-gwang smirks, eager to see the light footwork he's heard so much about. Kekwan meets their gaze with a subtle, challenging smile of his own. Hong Seol notes his aggressive nature, realizing he understands the tension without words, but Kekwan simply lets out a loud, disrespectful yawn, complaining that their boring conversation is making him sleepy, much to Hong Seol's surprise. A small, amused smile plays on Hong Seol's lips at his audacity. She excuses his behavior and quickly leads him away, ending the confrontation. As they leave, Song Gyeong offers to take the fighter from her, right now. His eyes gleam with a sudden, intense desire to kill Kekwan, but Man Ho-gwang holds him back, advising him to focus on training for now. He smiles cruelly, suggesting they should savor a good meal slowly. Guak Weirang watches the entire exchange from a distance, his expression unreadable. He looks down, a determined glint in his eyes as he considers his next move. A simple skewer of candied fruit is offered as a gift, as Hong Seol believes a small kindness will slowly earn the boy's trust. Kekwan just stares at the treat, his expression completely unreadable, and the sight triggers a memory of a familiar voice calling his name. His older brother, Jungkwan, smiles, showing him a small surprise. 2 precious honey cookies held gently in a clean cloth. A much younger Kekwan's eyes light up with pure, unbridled joy, barely believing the treat is for him as his brother happily confirms it. Kekwan's narration reveals he never understood his brother's struggles back then. In the present, he looks down, filled with bitter regret for his ignorance. He walks past another hungry child huddled on the street, and without a word offers the candied fruit to the young beggar, whose face breaks into a smile of pure delight at the unexpected gift. Hong Seol asks why he gave it away, warning him such treats are rare. Kekwan simply states that he doesn't deserve something like that, insisting he only needs food that will keep his body ready for battle. Hong Seol looks at him with a sudden, strange sense of recognition, realizing that in many ways he's just like she used to be. Later, she tells him to at least eat his meal if he intends to keep fighting. As he eats, she asks why he never even considered trying to escape. Kekwan doesn't even look up, asking why he would ever run. She reminds him of the brutal, deadly fights waiting for him at the arena, but he shocks her by revealing that fighting is the only reason he's staying. He declares his goal is to become the strongest one there, and only then will he leave. Hong Seol closes her eyes, questioning if he truly understands what that title means. Kekwan states his simple philosophy: he just has to beat everyone. Hong Seol lets out an amused scoff at his blunt declaration, finding his directness entertaining as she muses this will be fun. Her amusement is suddenly cut short by a realization as she watches him reach for a particular side dish, and he picks up a piece of vegetable with his chopsticks. the simple food triggers a sudden, powerful memory. A time when his older brother would share meals with him, causing his hand to tremble as a tear falls into his rice bowl. Hong Seol watches this abrupt shift in his demeanor. As Kwan silently begins to cry while continuing to eat, she correctly guesses he's thinking of family, realizing he's still a child, and considers that showing warmth might make him annoyingly attached, but decides to awkwardly pat his head in a rare show of comfort. Kwan immediately slaps her hand away, telling her to stop, leaving her stunned and wondering what kind of man he'll become. She thinks in the fighting arena bathed in orange light, where an impatient crowd demands the next match begin. Deep below, a fighter takes a breath before lifting a heavy sack, hoisting the immense weight onto his powerful shoulders. Bayang, the bald man, warns from the shadows. Bayang drops the heavy sack with a resounding thud. Calmly acknowledging the order with quiet resolve, nearby, Kwan looks on with determination, ready to enter the arena.